Hello, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, depending from where you are connected. Welcome, and thank you very much for joining us. My name is Arina Anisie, and I am part of the innovation team at IRENA, the International Renewable Energy Agency. Today, I have the pleasure of moderating the webinar, Innovations for a Decentralized Renewable Power System, Peer-to-Peer Electricity Trading, jointly organized with SEDA, the Sustainable Energy Development Authority in Malaysia. During the next hour, we will discuss about the decentralization of the power system, with consumers taking up a more active role. We will hear from SEDA about the peer-to-peer electricity trading pilot project developed in Malaysia, and then we will also hear from Power Ledger, an Australian company facilitating electricity trading through blockchain technology, on the importance of digital technologies in enabling consumers in transitioning to active actors. So first, I have the pleasure to introduce to you the CEO of SEDA, Dr. Sanjay Velautam, for welcoming remarks. Dr. Velautam, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Irena, for the introduction. Greetings to all participants, and I hope you all are doing well. And I believe by now we are all used to the new norm of life. I would like to thank IRENA for inviting SEDA to jointly organize this webinar on P2P electricity trading. I'm very pleased to see such a good turnout for this webinar, and certainly it reflects the interest on such innovative applications of the fourth industrial revolution in the energy space. As such, one of the emerging trends is the rapid adoption of digitalization to improve resilience in many sectors. Energy is, of course, one of them, and I'm very pleased that IRENA has identified P2P electricity trading as one of the 30 important innovations moving forward. Just to share with all of you, in 2019, SEDA, or the Sustainable Energy Development Authority, was tasked by our ministry to develop a renewable energy transition roadmap to chart the path towards greater decarbonization of our national power systems. Now, Malaysia is a country that is well endowed with renewable resources, and being in the Sun Belt means we have abundance of solar energy. To this effect, the RETR, of the Renewable Energy Transition Roadmap, was identified that there is a huge potential of rooftop PV markets, especially when the levelized cost of solar energy has come down by nearly 80% in Malaysia in the past decade. The RETR has also identified that P2P electricity trading is one of the potential strategies to scale up rooftop PV markets. Even in the early days of evaluation, the concept of P2P trading was appealing to the consumers in many ways. As in any P2P model, the concept leverages on sharing economy underpinned by digital technologies brought about by the combination of blockchain, the Internet of Things, smart contracts, big data, and cloud applications. P2P models are intended to be cost and time efficient, and attributes to blockchain technology provides data immutability, transparency, and high level of trust. After much consideration, SEDA launched our pilot run of P2P energy trading in October last year, concluding this pilot run in June this year. We are in the midst of analyzing various aspects and outcomes, addressing the challenges and mitigations from a Malaysian context. Mr. Hazrail, the technical lead of this project, will share with you some of our findings during the panel discussion. Today, SEDA is humbled by our pilot run of the P2P electricity trading that has been recognized internationally, and we have shared our findings in many platforms, one of which is this IRENA, IEA, the Asia Development Bank, and shared in conferences in Europe, India, Indonesia, Thailand, and Philippines. And we hope we continue to share and learn from each other through these experiences. Finally, I wish to thank IRENA again for providing this opportunity, and also the stakeholders which made Malaysia's pilot run of P2P electricity trading possible, from Australia Power Ledger, Energy Commission of Malaysia, Tenaga Nasional, and the Energy Ministry of Malaysia. I wish all participants a fruitful and engaging session with the speakers, and stay safe. Thank you. IRENA, over to you.
Thank you very much for your remarks, Dr. Velautam. That was a great introduction to today's topic of the webinar. I'm now pleased to introduce our today's speakers. We have Mr. Hazril Izan bin Bahari, which is the director of SEDA. Then we have Francisco Boschel, who leads the work on innovation for renewable energy technologies at IRENA. And last but not least, Dr. Gemma Green and Vinod Tiwari from Power Ledger will say some words on the on the blockchain platform. Dr. Gemma Green is the co-founder and executive chairman of Power Ledger, and Vinod Tiwari is the head of business development and sales at Power Ledger. On today's agendas, we have 3 presentations of around 10 minutes each, followed by a Q&A session. I will start with a very short setting the scene presentation, introducing our work on integration of power system, renewable and power, introducing our work on innovation at IRENA. We will then hear from Francisco, who will talk about renewable integration and power system decentralization, and the importance of innovation, not only in digital technologies, but also in business models for a decentralized system. Hazril will then present the peer-to-peer pilot project developed by SEDA in Malaysia, and Gemma and Vinod will add their insights on blockchain, the digital technology on which the peer-to-peer trading platform in Malaysia is based. But before we start, I would like to walk you through some few housekeeping items. All of you are currently muted, and we will remain so during the webinar. You can use the chat feature to introduce yourself and talk to the attendees. If you have questions for the speakers, please use the dedicated Q&A tab in the webinar panel. We will be monitoring these questions throughout the session and select some of them to be answered by our speakers at the end. We will do our best to reply to as many questions as possible. The slides and recordings will be shared via email after the end of the webinar. You may also download the materials for further reading in handout session. We encourage you to tell us how we did to help us improve. Please fill in the survey that will be sent you after the webinar. And with no further delay, let me start by introducing you a little bit the work we are doing on innovation at IRENA. We have been mapping in the past years and analyzing the emerging innovations that allow the integration of variable renewable energy, as solar and wind. We see that these technologies, solar and wind technologies, are now cost competitive due to tremendous cost reduction over the last years. The challenge now is integrating this variable generation in current power system. So the innovation should focus on integration of these variable renewables. So we are looking at the innovation, and we observe there are plenty of innovations in enabling technologies, such as battery storage, electric vehicle, hydrogen, digital technologies like blockchain. However, innovation goes beyond technology. We see innovative business models emerging, such as peer-to-peer trading, aggregators, and we also see a lot of innovation in market design that incentivize a more flexible behaviors of all the actors in the market and empower consumers, just to name some. We also see a lot of innovation happening in the operation of the system. We see new emerging practices for the operation to value complementarities between renewable generation or innovations for operating an increasingly decentralized systems. The synergies between all this innovation are key to achieve a well-integrated renewable power system. For example, we have enabling technologies. All the enabling technologies create new opportunities to operate the system, which concludes in innovation in system operation. But the question is how to monetize the value created by these new operation practices. And one way is to design regulations to incentivize investment, and this will result in innovation in market design, which will create new business models and will further enable new revenue streams for technologies. In some cases, when market design is not there yet, private sector identifies new business opportunities directly and creates revenue streams for the technologies. So what I want to say with this is the synergies between these innovations are needed, and we need innovation in all these 4 dimensions to have a successful solution to integrate variable renewable energy. This is what we call in IRENA systemic innovation. So we have mapped innovation in all these dimensions, and we have come up with 30 key innovations that are key in integrating variable renewable energy. All these are included in the main report that was launched last year, Innovation Landscape for a Renewable Power Future. In addition, we published last month 30 innovation briefs, each of them for one of the innovations identified, completing therefore the power sector innovation toolbox for countries. So each of these briefs discuss one of the key innovation identified, presents the status, the challenges in implementing, concrete examples, projects for each of the innovations. They are available to download from IRENA website free of charge. And today we will mainly discuss 2 of these innovations identified. We will talk about peer-to-peer electricity trading and blockchain. With no further delay, let me welcome our first speaker Francisco Boschel from IRENA. Francisco, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Arina, and thanks to also the co-organizers, SEDA and Power Ledger, and welcome to everyone also from my side to join this webinar. So next slide, please, Arina. So decentralization. We see decentralization as one of the 3 key trends that are transforming power systems at the moment. So as you can see on the graph on the screen, the first one I would like to mention is decentralization, where we have now, thanks to the renewable energy technologies, which are small and modular, the opportunity to have small generation units scattered all over the power system, and also better manage demand loads. So all of this is very much on the supply side, so providing services and providing electricity to the system. Now, on the demand side, we see another important trend, which is electrification. And this is basically now use electricity directly to replace the combustion of fossil fuels in, for example, the transport sector, in vehicles, or in heating systems, for example, in boilers, etc. So replace that by electricity. That also adds new small loads connected to the power system, all scattered or distributed. So this is more on the demand side. So supply side, decentralization, demand side, electrification. But of course, all these small generation units and loads now connected at different level of voltage and different locations in the power system is creating a new level of complexity for power system. And now we need enhanced tools that can help us to have visibility on all these assets, but also to better operate and optimize the whole power system. And for that, digitalization is crucial, because these digital technologies are the ones which will help us to collect data, monitor, and control such distributed generation as well as loads to better optimize and maintain our power systems. Next slide, please. And with all these new technologies that include distributed generation, basically solar rooftop PV systems, but also could be micro wind turbines, also behind the meter batteries, smart charging electric vehicles, heat pumps, also the possibility to have smart appliances that can provide demand response. What we see is that all these new assets connected to the electricity systems are not owned and are not operated by the usual actors in power systems. They are now owned and operated basically by the end user or the consumer. This is, of course, changing the power system in a very interesting way, because on the one hand, it's giving consumers new options to decide on what kind of generation they would like to have, but also how to manage their electricity consumption, but also is having important implications on the power sector, because now these assets connected to the grid are behaving in a way that is not directly controlled by the usual system operators. So this is also having some important implications in the power system. Next slide, please. And with that, of course, new business models are coming. So as we said, all these small assets generating electricity and consuming electricity and be able to be controlled and managed can also become sources of services for the power system, providing better balancing, reducing peak load, etc. Yeah. But one of the issues is that, of course, most of those assets are really a small scale, and then they cannot really bid to provide services directly to the power system because their scale is too small. So what is needed is basically to aggregate them in order to have a higher scale of this power supply or power demand that can be controlled to make it usable by the power system. And this is the business model that some companies are seeing, and they are called aggregators, also called virtual power plants. And what we see, and is interesting, is that what they are aggregating is not only electricity generation of kilowatt hours from PVs on the rooftop. They are also aggregating the control of loads, so reducing or managing dispatchable loads, also the time when you can charge or discharge your car if they are connected to the system. So what we are seeing is that they are aggregating services, not necessarily aggregating electricity generation. And by aggregating that they can now bid to provide services to the main grid or to the main system operators. And this trend is becoming quite interesting. Actually, it is expected that now this market of virtual power plants is around 1 billion, but it could be almost 5 billion in the next 3 to 5 years with a very rapid growth. And we are seeing a lot of countries now implementing such kind of approaches in Europe, but as well as in Australia and in the US, and also in Asia, like for example, Korea and other areas. And interesting is that they are already starting to bid to provide services to the grid, and this is already being tested, like in the case of Germany, for example, with Nextkraftwerke. They are already willing to provide ancillary services to the grid. Next slide, please. Now, let's forget about all the services that the distributed energy resources can provide, and let's focus only on one aspect of distributed energy resources, which is distributed generation. So basically, provide electricity from all these PV systems on rooftops. Yeah, and the first thing that we see is that there is a very important growth in this type of systems. Today, we estimate that we have around 220 gigawatts of distributed PV installed globally. So to give us an idea, this is like 6 times the whole generation capacity of a country like Malaysia. So we have like 6 times the generation capacity of Malaysia, for example, now globally in small PV systems on roofs. And we expect that by 2050, this may grow significantly to more than 3,500 gigawatts of distributed PV by the mid of this century. This is really huge, and it's estimated it would be around 40% of all PV capacity. So we see that this energy transition is really fostering this kind of systems which are distributed. Next slide, please. And then this electricity generated is, of course, opening more business models. We discuss about aggregators, but now we also will discuss about peer-to-peer trading of electricity. And this will be discussed also by the colleagues of SEDA and Power Ledger in more detail. But basically, now we are seeing that having all these PV systems on the roof, they can for example, trade their surplus of electricity that they are not self-consuming to the neighbors or to other system actors. Yeah? And they can do this trade of electricity directly without the need of a third party, or they can cluster themselves also using the aggregator business models. Now, as of today, we see that these distributed energy systems, PV systems globally, last year were generating around 350 terawatt hours of electricity. Again, this is, for example, just to put it in context, more than, for example, 3 times the electricity generated by Malaysia. And this is generated by these small PV systems. Yeah, and this will continue to grow significantly. So this is the theoretical market that we have for peer-to-peer trading, which can reach more than 50 billion US dollars in electricity trade. Also, we are seeing that this is happening not only in developed countries, but we are seeing this happening in countries like Colombia, some countries in South Africa, in Asia, and definitely in Malaysia, as will be explored later. Next slide, please. And then we need these digital technologies to enable all of these business models. And here we mentioned 3 main technologies. Internet of Things, which basically the role is to collect all the data coming from these small generation units and small loads that can be controllable and transferring this data. And the next step is, okay, what do we do with all this data? Well, for that we need artificial intelligence, which help us to make fast and smart decision making, which is automated and fully aligned with the main objectives described by the power system. And then these decisions should end up in transactions. So I sell electricity here, or I purchase electricity from there to charge my electric vehicle, or I switch off my air conditioning and this time and be compensated for that, you know. And all these transactions have to be managed by smart contracts, which are automated following certain criteria and need to be done very quickly and also in a very secure way. And here is where we see that distributed ledger technologies such as blockchain have an important role to play in order to facilitate that these transactions are secure, fast, and optimized. Next slide, please. And finally, I would like to conclude by saying that we have to be careful on something. By having such good infrastructure and smart technologies, it doesn't mean that we end up with smart solutions. So decentralization can be an important source of flexibility for power systems that we discussed. If we aggregate and we manage these distributed energy resources, they can provide ancillary services, they can balance the grid, they can alleviate congestion, especially distributed grid, etc. But these technologies have to be used in a smart way, which means that they need to consider the needs of the user. So certainly they need to reduce the electricity bill of the consumers and so on, but also very important, they need to consider the needs of the power system, which means that if, for example, we have distributed energy systems which at the end promotes that every user is making transaction at a time where there is congestion, we are even increasing the stress on the power system. So what we need is to use these distributed technologies in a way that change or promote a change in the behavior of the users to alleviate the stress on the system instead of increasing the stress of the system. And also on the regulatory aspect, these systems, they still need to continue to observe all the market principles, the consumer rights, the appropriate cost-sharing principle for the use of the electricity grid, and have appropriate electric tariff structures that, for example, compensate still the grid operator by using the public infrastructure, and also, let's say, price in or compensate the services that these users are providing. So great to have smart technologies, but just by having a smart technologies doesn't mean we end up with a smart solution. So we need to really incorporate the regulatory aspects, the consumer behavior, and the system perspective to really have a smart solution. And for that, it's important to have demonstration projects, regulatory sandboxes, as it will be discussed by the cases of SEDA and Power Ledger. So I would like to stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Francisco, for these insights and this very good presentation. Indeed, we see a lot of developments happening towards decentralization and digitalization of the system. And we have to do it smartly to be able to integrate more renewables in a most efficient and cost-efficient way. But we are looking forward to hear from a demonstration project, the peer-to-peer energy trading project in Malaysia. So I will give the floor right away to Hazil. The floor is yours.
Okay. Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today, and also thank you to IRENA for giving me this opportunity to share about Malaysia's first P2P energy trading pilot project. I'm Hazril, the Director of Digital Services in Sustainable Energy Development Authority, Malaysia, or also called SEDA. A brief about SEDA. We are a government agency reporting to the Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources. We were established in September 2011 under the SEDA Act, and our primary function are to implement the feed-in tariff mechanism and to advise the Minister on the matters related to the sustainable energy. Next, Arena. Okay, SEDA has decided to come out with a pilot project of the P2P energy trading for conducting a technical feasibility studies. So, slides jumping. Okay. Okay, so the objective of this pilot project as shown in the slide, which mainly to run the P2P energy trading within the sandbox environment. We are working with the stakeholders such as Minister, Energy Commission, TMB, the utility company, and also Power Ledger as the platform provider. For your information, currently the electricity market in Malaysia is still regulated. Therefore, we need a regulatory sandbox to allow the prosumer and the consumer to trade the energy. The regulatory sandbox was approved last year by the Energy Commission, commencing November 2019 until June 2020, with the key provision as shown in the slide. So this is what we're looking in the pilot project. First, on the infrastructure, this is more on how actually the existing TMB platforms such as meter, network, and billing can be connected with the Power Ledger P2P energy trading platform. And the second one is on the process. What is actually the needed process to run the P2P energy trading, such as how to process the data, how to process the trading, and how actually to process the settlement. Since this is quite new, so we need to establish this during the pilot. Okay. The third one is on the participant, on how actually we can do the selection of the prosumer and the consumer. So for this, actually, we identify several criteria, for example, that can suitable to participate in this pilot project. The fourth one is on the business model. I think just now Francisco also mentioned about the business model. But for this pilot project, mainly we actually looking for the arbitrage opportunities. I will explain more about that. And on this business model, also we are looking on how actually the P2P can be operated and promote the solar rooftop installation. Like just now earlier, our CEO, Dr. Sanjay, has mentioned, we have identified that there are a lot of potential in rooftop solar installation in Malaysia under our renewable energy transition roadmap study. Okay. And also under this participant, we also found that the participant decision is much driven to the economic return. Okay. The last one is on the regulation. this is what actually regulation that needs to support the P2P energy trading implementation in Malaysia for the future. The study has completed on 30th June 2020, and of course the journey is not without the challenges, and I will share it later what actually we face and what mitigation that we have done. Next. Okay. The slide is jumping. Okay. So in this slide is actually the concept of this pilot run. There are three main stakeholders that you can see in this slide, which are the prosumers who are actually generating the energy. So for this pilot project, the prosumer actually from the existing NEM applicant, so meaning that there is no new solar installation. Just to participate for this, we utilize the existing NEM applicant. They are currently enjoying one-to-one net energy metering. So what they do, actually, they will produce and sell the energy to the consumer. However, under this pilot project, if there is no taker for the excess energy, TNB will accept it at zero cost. Second one is the utility company, which is TNB, who actually provide and support us very well, especially on the grid, on their meter infrastructure, and also on the billing. And also at the same time also on the settlement, so that we will go through on the same utility billing, and we don't need to have a redundant meter for this project. The third is the consumer who bought the energy from the prosumer. So to make the P2P energy trading feasible, we have selected the prosumer from the low tariff and the consumer from the high tariff, so that the prosumer, beside of self-consume the excess energy under the NEM, they have the opportunity to sell the energy higher price than their tariff, but with a bit lower to the consumer's tariff. In terms of the trading, Power Malaysia provides the trading platform that, and actually we are working with them, I think with all the stakeholders since last 2 weeks since last 2 years to facilitate and to complete this project. This project was divided into 2 phases, which are the alpha and beta. For the alpha is more on the paper transaction with actual meter data from the prosumer and consumer, but without the commercial transaction. The second phase is beta, which should include the commercial transaction. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic and movement control order in Malaysia, we have anticipated that less business activities from the participants. Therefore, we have continued the alpha until end of June and processed the billing to see the simulated trading. Based on the trading result, it shows high untraded energy during March because lower consumption due to the movement control order. However, towards the end, June, we see the improvement, meaning that less untraded energy.
Harzil, I think we lost you. Can you hear us? Okay, I think we lost Harzil. Maybe he will be able to connect in few minutes, but not to lose too much time.
I'm okay now.
Do you hear us?
Yes, I can hear. Sorry, I
okay,
think
next. Great. Okay, maybe keep the video off if you have troubles with the connection.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Next slide. Okay, this slide shows the key challenges and the mitigation that have been done for this project. I think just now Francisco also mentioned about the infrastructure. Yes, we are facing challenges, especially to connect the TMB platform and Power Ledger, because this is actually two platforms, but we have to bridge the gap between these two. To mitigate this, how actually we have done is SEDA has developed a data aggregator to format the TMB meter data and send to the Power Ledger and P2P energy trading platform to process the trading. Although it's not fully automated, we are able to process the data from the meter up to the trading and generating the statement of use by 10 days, and later to be used for the billing and settlement from TMB. Second challenge is on selecting the participant, which are the prosumer and consumer. Under this challenge is actually we need to find the matching energy profile between the prosumer and consumer so that the trading can be happen. Since the prosumer are actually from the NEM program, we need to see how actually, because the prosumer generally will only inject into the grid if they are not self-consumed. So basically, they will normally inject into the grid during the weekend or during the holiday, and also sometimes during the lunch. So we need to also find the consumer that actually operate during this time. Okay, so what we did is actually based on our experience, we will request a meter data from TMB, the historical data for the maybe for the last 3 months, and try to simulate. So I think this is also part of the requirement for the future P2P platform, so that they can facilitate the matching before the participant join the program. The third challenge is actually to setting up the energy trading platform itself, because for this, for example, we need to look into the trading on, for example, the trading algorithm, the P2P price, and also in the same time matching the prosumer and consumer. So how actually we did it is actually we need the prosumer, we need the consumer with high energy demand, especially during weekend and holidays. But this is just for this pilot project, but in the future it may be different. Okay. The reason, because this will help to reduce the untraded energy. For the trading rules, just for your information, we use the cheapest price from the prosumer, so that the most cheapest price from the prosumer will be cleared first. Okay, the fourth is the process. This one is actually what we require to complete the trading, such as billing reconciliation and also the settlement. Since Malaysia electricity market is regulated, prosumer and consumer have a limitation on the energy trading, such as payment, collection, and billing. Therefore, to mitigate this challenge, TMB act as the clearing house. This means that the settlement of the trading will go through TMB, including the collection and payment. This also helps to reduce the risk on the collection. Next. Okay, this diagram shows how the settlement process was designed. If you notice there at the top, TMB act as the clearinghouse to allow the prosumer and consumer trade their energy. The price for the P2P that paid by the consumer essentially includes the system access charges, which is 6.3 cents per kilowatt. This is the interim for this during the pilot project. And the system access charges is actually belong to TMB, and the P2P price is belong to the prosumers. Okay, next. So this slide shows the screenshot of Power Ledger P2P energy trading platform. It functions to process the meter data and to process the trading by matching the supply and demand between the prosumer and consumer based on the trading logic and algorithm. The platform also provides the visual to the users so that they can see their own energy profile and trading. All stakeholders, including prosumer, consumer, TNB, Energy Commission, and also SEDA can access to this trading platform. Okay, next. Okay, this is the participants under this project, under the P2P energy trading pilot run. Just now, in the earlier diagram, it shows that there are about 6 prosumer and 8 consumer. However, during the pilot project, there are 2 prosumer withdraw their participation because due to the economic reason. So this is also one of the area that we are actually looking. So how actually in terms of sustainable of the prosumer itself. Okay, for the consumer so far, they are enjoying better rate because under this project they are enjoying about 10%. In terms of the rate, if you notice that at the bottom there are 2 boxes. This one is actually determine the tariff that participate, the customer tariff that participate in this pilot project. On the left is on the prosumer. They are actually from the commercial with their existing tariff about 35 cents. And then with under this P2P project, we facilitate them to mark up about not more than 10%. So end up they are able to sell at 39.05 cents. Okay, so on the consumer side, there are from the industrial with the tariff about 50.9 cents, but under this project, with the price from the prosumer about 39.05 cents plus with the network charges, so end up they are paying about 45.35 cents. So means that there are some saving to them. Okay, but this is during the pilot, but in the actual one there are also other fees that will be included, for example as a retailer fee maybe and other fees. Okay, next. Okay, so this is my last slide. This actually show the key takeaway from the pilot project. The first one, yes, I agree with Francisco just now. It's more on the infrastructure is very, very important. Although it is smart, but we require to manage it to make it work as what we designed. So for the infrastructure, it must be good and to support the P2P energy trading platform. And second one is on the participant. The decision to participate in the P2P energy trading is driven by the economic reason. And then at the same time also the enrollment of the participant also should be simple and not to burden the prosumer and consumer. And then the last one, this is on the system network access charges, because we see that it provides a market signal to the viability of the P2P energy trading. Therefore, we may need some mechanism to determine the network charges so that the P2P can be feasible. I think that's all. Thank you for listening. Back to you, IRENA.
Thank you very much for this very insightful presentation. It's very interesting to hear from a real developed project, the challenges and how it works. Digital technologies fail on us sometimes, as we can see in the presentation, but it's very interesting to hear. And I liked that I see in the graph from the Power Ledger that you presented that many transactions are actually peer-to-peer trading, and that decreased a lot the transactions from the grid. So with this being said, let us jump to the next presentation, and let us hear from Power Ledger, from Gemma Green and Vinod Tiwari on the blockchain, on energy use cases and what other real application they deployed around the world with the peer-to-peer platform. Gemma, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Power Ledger is software for distributed energy markets, which we developed recognizing that energy systems are changing from a centralized system to a hybridized model. And if you turn to the next slide, pretty much energy systems have remained relatively unchanged for the better part of a century. characterised by large-scale generation bringing electricity to people's homes and businesses. But due to distributed renewables, if you turn the page, consumers of electricity are now also generators, or what is called a prosumer. And this is really what a distributed energy system looks like. Depending where you are on the evolution of energy, you'll see part or all of this in your current state or future as a utility. And in our presentation, we'll look at some of the issues in this energy transition and how they can be addressed.
Next, please. So just to provide Malaysian context, we're talking about SEDA here. So looking at what's happening in Malaysia, the generation mix is largely still coal-based, roughly around close to 70% generation is coal and 20-25% gas. With some renewable in the mix, but Malaysia has aggressive targets as well. So clearly they need to develop sustainable PV generation programs. And as Hasdal pointed out in earlier, Dr. Sanjay as well, that peer-to-peer energy trading is one of the great initiatives in this space. Next, please.
And for those markets that want to scale renewables, it's really important to learn from the challenges experienced in other markets with high penetration of renewables and particularly solar. In this graph, you can see Western Australia with some of the issues that are caused by a lot of solar, which is colloquially called the duck curve. And it basically means that there's too much solar during the day and not enough consumption. And there is a need to therefore encourage the uptake of solar PV without compromising the system security and the reliability. And this graph depicts a typical load duration curve. And the situation highlights more broadly the challenges electricity networks are facing in coming years due to the high penetration of renewables. And the duck curve, although it sounds really cute, actually causes serious issues, which include the reverse flows of electricity, voltage, reactive power, and grid balancing issues, including frequency control challenges regarding the scheduling of baseload generation. So it's really nothing to quack about. And without action, this can lead to brownouts and blackouts in the worst case, and in the best case, curtailment for electricity, which is a nice word for throwing energy away, or otherwise expensive upgrades to the grid are required.
Next, please. So to deal with that, many electricity markets around the world are implementing network pricing reforms for the better integration of DERs. So for example, Texan system operator is looking at having batteries settle energy at the nodal price for charging and discharging. Likewise, Ofgem UK, in New Zealand, Switzerland, Swissgrid, Chile, and also CAISO, all looking at various innovative mechanisms to deal with for the better integration of DERs. But again, the network reform alone is not the solution to deliver energy security.
Turning to the next slide. PowerLedger, we developed our platform really to provide a market mechanism to help bridge the gaps in the system and help energy retailers provide new products and services to the market in a simpler way, and overarchingly allow renewables to scale without creating headaches in the grid. So if you turn to the next slide, just details some of the platform features. So they're broken into two broad categories. The first is around the trading of electricity, and XGrid is peer-to-peer trading, which is the subject of the project that we undertook with SEDA. UGrid is trading of electricity within a microgrid, so that could be an apartment building, a shopping centre, or an office building. Our virtual power plant platform feature means that batteries are able to dispatch electricity and provide services to the grid, and that was mentioned earlier as well. And for that, we have a partnership in South Australia with an energy retailer and a battery manufacturer in Europe called Sonnen. Vision is the tracking and tracing of electricity, and allowing customers to choose their own energy mix. And PPA Vision is for managing the offtake of renewable energy generation. And then the second category on our platform is around the trading of environmental commodities. And for that, we have Trace, which is a platform registry for certificates, and TraceX, which is a marketplace for the trading and settlement of those certificates. So I'm turning now to the next slide.
So we started 4 years ago, and back then we had one proof of concept in Western Australia. So from there, we've now moved on to have a significant presence in 10 plus countries with 20 plus projects, and our presence is growing as we speak. At the moment, we're covering, I think, 4 continents, Gemma, including the US, France, Japan, Southeast Asia, and of course here in Australia.
Moving to the next slide. Why do we use a blockchain? It isn't the solution for everything. Some things can be done without a blockchain, but it's worth looking at the benefits of using a blockchain in electricity markets. So there's a few reasons. The first is around faster settlement. So blockchain is great for microtransaction settlement and instant settlement. So no longer do you have to wait 60 days for the reconciliation processes to occur in order to be paid. Second benefit is what the smart contracting functionality can facilitate, which is essentially more complex interactions and transactions. So in things like a virtual power plant, where there are many activities a battery could participate in, and also many counterparties, complex markets can be facilitated by smart contracts to optimize the best use of the battery and also facilitate the trading and the settlement. The third area is around cross-retailer trading. A greater market size can be created as the blockchain can facilitate trading and settling energy with other retailers' customers. And this provides a reliable source of truth where consumers can trust the measurement of how electricity is sold and the amount that they should be paid, with less intermediaries, which ultimately drives cost efficiencies. And the final area, which is what the blockchain is perhaps most well known for, is around enhanced auditing, where every transaction on the platform is recorded on the blockchain, and that provides a secure and auditable trail that streamlines any disputes, as well as preventing mistakes caused by manual handling and record keeping.
So next slide, please. So in the next few slides, what we're going to look at is the real energy use cases of blockchain. That's one of the themes of the presentation as well today. And what better than actually looking at the real practical world deployments. So what we decided was to go through our deployments in various jurisdictions, various geographies, to give you a flavor of what all can be done with blockchain. First project, of course, we're talking about, we've got SEDA in attendance here, so Sustainable Energy Development Authority's proof of concept. It is Malaysia's first foray into peer-to-peer energy trading. And the trial, as Hazril pointed out, demonstrated that peer-to-peer energy trading can encourage growth of rooftop solar in a scalable way. And as a result of this, we are now working with TNBX on a new project, realizing that will be focused on community solar peer-to-peer to address not just the energy arbitrage part, but also capacity constraints in the network, which will be, of course, we'll be providing more details in times to come.
I'm turning to the next slide. In Thailand, we have our world first project with the Thai energy company BCPG, which is in the T77 precinct in Bangkok. There's 6 commercial sites trading with each other peer-to-peer, and there's currently, I think, 9 more buildings with rooftop solar being installed and connected right now to expand the size of the peer-to-peer market. And as a result of this demonstration project in Thailand, which is actually the largest commercial peer-to-peer project in the world, we've expanded our relationship in Thailand with the Thai government. To turn to the next slide, we've partnered with BCPG and TDED, which is part of the Thai government, and our first project there is in Chiang Mai, And this is a 12 megawatt installation at Chiang Mai University, which will incorporate both peer-to-peer trading of electricity and also virtual power plant trading as part of a smart campus. And we're also thrilled to announce today a REC trading project in Thailand in partnership with TDED.
Yeah, that's great news. Next slide, please. So staying in Asia, North Asia actually, so we're working in Japan. We actually got multiple projects. So the one we picked for discussion today is the one in our partnership with Kansai Electric Power Company. And we've actually done 2 projects with them. KEPCO is Japan's largest privately owned utility. We completed peer-to-peer energy trading between prosumers and consumers and a REC trading project with them. So the REC trading was done by aggregating rooftop solar energy and converting them to RECs as well as non-fossil certificates for usage by RE100 companies. Next, please. Another project in India in partnership with India Smart Grid Forum in the largest state of India, Uttar Pradesh. We are developing peer-to-peer energy trading. This is for the state. And this project will inform the regulators evolving their market rules for deployment at the commercial level across the state down the track.
Turning now to the next slide. In France, we have a partnership with an energy retailer called Equateur, and they're using our Vision platform feature, which means their customers can choose their own energy mix. So it's no longer just about getting a renewable tariff. They can specify, I want 20% solar from this farm or 15% from this wind farm, and actually get to a high level of granularity, the composition of renewable energy in their tariff, which is very exciting. And moving on to the next slide.
This is another interesting use case of blockchain, and it is in California with Silicon Valley Power, which is owned by the city of Santa Clara. Our check is being used for EV charging stations to encourage EV owners to charge their cars when solar is generating and be paid credits for doing so under a compliance program called Low Carbon Fuel Standards Program.
Turning now to the next slide. Our partnership in the US with Clearway Energy Group is around renewable energy certificate trading. This is using our TraceX platform feature. And Clearway are NASDAQ listed. They have about 6 gigawatts of renewables in their portfolio, and therefore they're a large seller of renewable energy certificates. And together with them, we are launching a REC marketplace, and we've signed up 3 major tracking systems in the US, with one announced so far, which is MWEX, the Midwest Renewable Energy Tracking System.
Next, please. So this one, Renew Nexus, this is literally a project in our own backyard in the city of Fremantle. This project is focused on localized energy markets, utilizing blockchain technology, of course. It finished late last year and was supported by the Australian government and multiple other stakeholders listed here. The project had 2 parts, peer-to-peer energy trading, as well as virtual power plant simulation overlaid on top of peer-to-peer. It provides a blueprint on how renewables can be integrated in a scalable way, which is pretty much the kind of challenge that was laid out by Francisco's presentation as well. We recently published a report about it, and that's also available on our website.
Turning to the next slide, we undertook surveys of the participants, and they reported that peer-to-peer trading was popular, and they enjoyed using the platform, and that they see value in energy trading. And secondly, it altered their energy consumption habits. And one participant said, it actually gave me an incentive to move power consumption away from the peak periods. Turning to the next slide. In summary, we work with clients to design projects around their core objectives, which might include reducing the cost of energy, or balancing local generation and demand, or incentivizing and engaging prosumers in new ways, or developing price mechanisms to affect change, securing trading and selling peer-to-peer markets, as well as dealing with network issues for renewables that we've discussed earlier, such as voltage and capacity constraints and network power losses. So we offer flexibilities through DERs to network operators and managers to maintain and improve system resiliency while scaling renewables.
Thanks, Gemma. So this brings us to the end of our presentation. We now hand you back to IRENA and we'll be open for questions.
Thank you very much, Gemma and Vinod. That was a very insightful presentation, and there are so many peer-to-peer projects out there implemented that is taking up quite fast. We have we are already at the end of our hour dedicated for this webinar. However, we have received a lot of questions, and if you agree, we will take a few more minutes to answer at least few questions from the one received, so please bear with us. I see there we still have a lot of connected participants on the line, so I think we can take a few more minutes to answer a few of the questions. So I will start with one question. So I received many questions. I grouped them. So I will ask one of you some of the grouped questions that we received. I think the first one is most suitable for you, Francisco. If you can hear us. There is one question related to how do you see the decentralization trend in the next 20 years? Will the system be completely decentralized system, or do you think power system will continue to be centralized? And more specific to this topic, is peer-to-peer trading going to be the way we trade energy, or most transactions will still remain centralized? If you can share your views on that, and if others have anything to add, please feel free.
Thanks, Arina. That's a very good question for the crystal ball. I have maybe two comments there. The first one, if we see the global trend at just electricity transaction, electricity generation, yeah? As we said, at the moment, we have around 220 gigawatts of distributed generation out of 7,000 gigawatts of total capacity. So around 3% of the whole electricity generation capacity to generate electricity is distributed. So 97% is centralized. So today is centralized. And in 2050, we said that around 3.5 terawatts of capacity would be distributed out of 20 terawatts. So it means that distributed may increase from 3 to maybe 17%. So this is a very important growth, like 6 times growth. But on the other hand, the reality is that the other more than 80% of electricity generated will continue to be centralized. Yeah. So if we see only the absolute numbers for electricity generation, the system will continue to be mainly centralized. However, having said that, the importance of decentralization goes more beyond that. And it's the issue that decentralization, 1 gigawatt of decentralized can leverage many gigawatts of centralized, because it's an important source of flexibility, and has an important impact, especially at low voltage level, on aspects such as congestion management and so on. So it's crucial that we continue to make efforts to have a very smart decentralized system, give consumers alternatives and options, empower them, and also observe the needs of the power system. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I see we all nod with Francisco's remarks. If anything to add? Okay, I will go to the next questions because we have received a lot of them regarding to this peer-to-peer project in Malaysia. So maybe for you, Hazril, I grouped some of them. We have a question asking, what is the SEDA next plan for peer-to-peer to move forward? When is the it's expecting that peer-to-peer will be commercialized into Malaysian market? And maybe in the same time, you can also answer the second one. What are the obstacles from a point of view of the national utility company when peer-to-peer trading is happening? Could you please share some of the interface issues that were faced, if any?
Okay. Thanks, Arina, for the question. Yeah, I think that's normally a favorite question when every time we do presentation. So after investing about 2 years in this P2P energy trading project, we look forward to a live deployment, perhaps for a small scale at the start. Nevertheless, we acknowledge that this is largely the role of the electricity retailer to implement, and SEDA looks forward to continue supporting our electricity retailer should the P2P be launched live. To this end, we have received much interest, especially from the PV industry, as well as local and state government, who have many buildings they would like to leverage on the P2P to scale up the PV deployment. SEDA, together with our stakeholders such as TMB, Energy Commission, are in the midst of preparing the report post of the alpha to our ministry as part of the closure activity. To this end, we are also grateful to Power Ledger for their support shown over this year of the sandbox run. The second one, just now you mentioned about the obstacles. So far, based on our experience that conducting this project together with the TMB, in terms of the interfacing, I think the most challenges is actually on the meter infrastructure, because they are actually operating in a different format. And when we try to utilize the existing data, so we need to have some modification, and this is where the aggregator play the roles to format it and to match with the requirement from the Power Ledger platform. Others, in terms of the communication, that's also one of the challenges, because when we are dealing with the remote meter, so there is also possibility of the failure of the communication, and this is also can be a challenge when we are trading, and this is also part of the challenges when we do the pilot project, and it may end up delay the trading also. But I think moving forward, this is where the infrastructure will play important roles, and it must be solid to support this P2P. I think that's all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. No, that's very interesting. And talking about bringing a peer-to-peer project to commercialization and integrating in the system and not having in a separate mini grid, we have various questions that I would address to Gemma and Vinod. So what kinds of network tariffs would actually work for peer-to-peer trading? How do we recompensate the DSOs for using its grid in the peer-to-peer trading paradigm? And most importantly, maybe what are the potential benefits for the grid? We have seen potential benefits for consumer. We have seen they like it and it's popular between consumers, but how is peer-to-peer also helping the grid?
So creating localized electricity markets is about helping the grid. Using peer-to-peer, you can match generation and consumption of electricity underneath a substation and avoid reverse flows of electricity, which is obviously damaging to the grid. And furthermore, surplus electricity that isn't able to be consumed can be stored in a battery and then provide stabilization services to the grid. And so the market mechanism of peer-to-peer trading derived in the local context, coupled with VPP, really provides a lot of opportunities to support the grid. If it's just about energy arbitrage, it's not really taking account of the concerns of the grid and may actually create more reverse flows. But using what our Renew Nexus project showed and the work that we're doing with TMB in Malaysia is looking at how do you establish these markets in a way that optimizes the benefits for the grid and a consumer at the same time.
Yeah, I'll probably just add that we also saw in Renew Nexus that there is a natural consumption shift in consumer behavior as well. When they do see peer prices are cheaper, they're more likely to use energy at that time, which almost sort of flattens the peak from the grid as well. So there's a natural inherent advantage for the grid where they can potentially defer some of the infrastructure upgrades, etc. And I think there was a question around network pricing as well. So to the extent the network company realizes the benefits that are visible, they can potentially discount the network tariffs in the same way. Obviously, the grid's being used, so the grid needs to be paid for it. So there will be wheeling charges or network access fee. But we see that more and more sort of DSOs are seeing the benefits, and they're factoring in that prudential discounting in their network pricing,
as well as income earning opportunities. But I think the long and short of it is that this can be done without subsidy, and you know, peer-to-peer electricity priced correctly will encourage greater consumption of electricity at the right times of the day.
Thank you very much. That I think clarifies the points. Unfortunately, we already are 10 minutes past from our time allotted to this webinar, so I would end the Q&A session here. Thank you very much for your presentations, for your questions. It has been great. We have received many good questions. We will try to pick them up differently and answer in our follow-ups, discussions, emails. Please bear with us. We will discuss. This is a very important topic, and I see a lot of interest. So we will pick it up in another setting. For those who would like to know more about our work, please check our IRENA event page. We have a series of other webinars coming up on different topics on innovations. We have tomorrow a webinar organized together with NLEAD on 30 innovations for a renewable power future. We will look at all these innovations discussed in our report. Also, between 5th and 8th October, we will organize a virtual edition of IRENA Innovation Week that will discuss more innovative solutions for decarbonizing transport and industry. Please feel free to check on the link there for subscribing and listening to the event. And also at the end of October, 20th October, we are having a webinar co-organized with Acer on innovations in electricity market design for solar and wind integrations. We will hear lessons learned from Europe. These are the lineup webinars, but from now, I would like again to warmly thank our speakers for the captivating presentations and very insightful discussions, and the audience for having asked plenty of relevant questions. And goodbye, and see you soon online. Thank you very much.
Thank you.